IBESS Ecosystems and Ecology 2, Part 7, is the second of two parts on biomes. This movie will provide detail on the distribution, structure, and productivity of specific biomes. Here's the outline for Ecosystems and Ecology. Topic 2 in the IBESS syllabus. Use this outline to find the part you need. This movie has its focus right here. Here's a definition of a biome, or maybe better yet a description of what a biome is. Regions of the earth inhabited by certain types of life, especially vegetation. A collection of ecosystems sharing similar climatic conditions, grouped into 5 major classes: aquatic, forest, grassland, desert, and tundra. A biome is a collection of ecosystems sharing similar climatic conditions. This diagram shows the distribution of biomes based on temperature and precipitation. For example, deserts, seen here, are located in regions with low precipitation, but they experience a reasonably wide range of temperature. You also know that the world's largest deserts are located 30 degrees north or south of the equator, and they're associated with the sinking air of the Hadley cell. Deserts are also found in the rain shadow of mountains. Tropical forests, seen here, are located in regions with warm temperatures, but tropical forests vary with respect to the amount of rainfall. Generally, though, precipitation is high. You also know that rainforests, tropical forests, are located in regions near the equator because of the high insolation causing air to rise, resulting in the condensation of water vapor, thus rainfall. Rising air at the equator is associated with the Hadley cell. Now notice that tundra is located in regions with cold temperatures and low rainfall. Remember that tundra receives low rainfall because of descending air associated with the small third cell of the tricellular circulation model. I'll let you study the remainder of the biomes on your own. If any reference to the tricellular model of atmospheric airflow feels confusing to you, go back and watch Part 6. Precipitation and temperature are the two most important abiotic factors that influence local climate. As a result, some biomes are more productive than others. To compare biome productivity, we must use the middle column displaying MPP in grams per meter square per year. Comparing biome productivity can only be done on a unit area basis. Now, rainforests are very productive because of warm, wet conditions. Deserts are unproductive because of the lack of precipitation. Temperate forests have an intermediate level of productivity between that of deserts and rainforests. The productivity of tundra is low due to cold temperatures and low light conditions over the course of a year. Reefs in warm, shallow water are highly productive, but the open ocean on a per unit area basis is quite unproductive due to the low density of producers. However, if we multiply the total area of the ocean by the productivity per meter square, oceans account for the largest total productivity of all biomes. Again, this large value results from the fact that oceans cover over 70% of the world's surface. Reefs, while productive, do not account for much of the world's productivity due to the fact that the total area of the reef biome is very small. Here is the IB syllabus statement that is the sole focus of this movie. You've seen it before, briefly. Explain the distribution, structure, and relative productivity of tropical rainforests, deserts, grasslands, temperate forests, and tundra. Refer to prevailing climate and limiting factors of each biome listed. As well, you need to gain familiarity with aquatic biomes. Let's start with tropical forests, forests that are located near the equator. Their characteristics are they receive greater than 250 centimeters of rainfall per year. They have warm temperatures with little daily variation in temperature. They have tall trees, canopy, substory, and floor species. Tropical forests are located within the tropics, centered around the equator. The explanation for their distribution was provided in Part 6, which had its focus on the tricellular model of atmospheric circulation. Review Part 6 as need be. Well, tropical forests have species that live on top of other species. As you can see in this diagram, there are entire ecosystems that exist off the ground. There are many mutualistic symbiotic relationships and various nutrient and energy pathways, very complex food webs. Tropical forests have high stability due to their high inertia. In other words, they're difficult to disturb because of their numerous niches, their complex food webs, the fact that their trees are perennials, very long-lived, and there's a greater constancy to the environment. Remember that the temperatures are warm and stable on a daily and yearly basis. Tropical forests have high diversity, tall trees with canopy, substory, and floor species, and a very high value of MPP. Tropical forests have a rich array of decomposers, and thus they have high rates of decomposition. But the big trees have locked up the minerals and nutrients, so soils can be quite nutrient poor, and this is a limiting factor. As well, light levels on the forest floor are quite low. This is a limiting factor on the forest floor. But remember, tropical forests have high stability due to the complex food webs and the large K-selected climax species. The forest floor can receive so little light that it is open, supporting less growth than one might imagine. The large K-selected climax species of a forest provide many niches, supporting complex food webs and adding stability to the system. The producers in tropical forests must compete for light, soil nutrients, and soil water. Often the soils of tropical forests are quite nutrient poor because the minerals are locked up in the biomass of the trees. Now let's move on to deserts. Deserts are characterized by greater rates of evaporation than precipitation. This is the single most important characteristic that defines a desert. In this photograph, you can see the impact of low rates of precipitation, sparse growth. The world's largest deserts can be found approximately 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south of the equator, resulting from the descending air of the Hadley cell. Deserts such as the Gobi in China and the Great Basin Desert in the United States are formed by their geographic position in the rain shadow of the mountains. The Gobi is in the rain shadow of the Himalayas, and the Great Basin Desert here is in the rain shadow of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Deserts are characterized by less than 25 centimeters of rain per year, large day-night fluctuation in temperature, and a low net primary productivity. The producer structure in desert biomes is that of sparse growth, shrubs, mixed with open, unvegetated area. Desert species are dry adapted, with succulent leaves or reduced leaf surface area or deep roots. Even the animal community displays dry adapted characteristics, such as the habit of burrowing. In this photograph of Joshua Tree National Park in California, a photograph I took, you can see a classic desert biome. The snow in the distant mountains results from high elevation and lower temperatures at high elevation. This region in front of you receives very little precipitation. The sparse growth and low productivity, as well as the relatively simple food chains, makes deserts vulnerable to disturbance. And once disturbed, they do not easily return to a native equilibrium. Thus, desert ecosystems have low stability. This is a photograph of Death Valley, California. The bottom of the valley in the distance is approximately 75 meters below sea level. Due to the sparse growth and the low productivity, disturbances to the land do not recover well. When people use deserts for recreation, for example, all-terrain vehicles or motorcycles, the landscape is scarred and remains so for a long time. Productivity in deserts is low because of low rates of precipitation, but salty soils, typical of deserts, also inhibit growth. Humans have worked to exploit resources in deserts, often because minerals are more easily seen in the bare earth. But deserts, located mostly 30 degrees north or south of the equator, are not easy places to live due to the dry conditions. I took this photograph of the Escalante Canyon in Utah, and within the trees there is a small river. And as you can see here, where there is water, there is productivity. So let's move on to grasslands. Grasslands are dominated by grasses and grazing animals. They have hot, dry summers. Grasslands are not very stable because they're easily disturbed by fire, but fire and grazing both inhibit trees from growing in the grassland. Periodic fires and grazing are both important to the long-term health of the grassland system. Grasslands are located wherever the local climate supports them. There are tropical grasslands, known as savannas, and there are temperate grasslands, often called prairies. The vegetation structure of grasslands is low grasses. Trees will grow, but are typically sparsely distributed and reduced by fire and grazers. Grasslands are dominated by pioneer species, early successional stage species, otherwise known as R-selected species. Grasses are unique biologically in that they grow from the bottom, the soil level, up, so they withstand fire and grazing. If the portion of the plant above ground is reduced by fire or grazing, they grow back. In this way, grasslands are resilient. In this way, grasslands are stable. But grasslands are an early successional stage. So without fire or grazers, the community might change, moving to an intermediate stage of succession. Remember, the grasses grow back after being grazed, so there is a strong relationship between grasses and grazers, and there are numerous species of grazers. The nature of grassland growth supports the varied grazer community. Here's a slide displaying the net primary productivity in grams carbon per meter square per year across various biomes. I've shown you information of this sort previously, but the information here is displayed differently. You can see that the NPP of savannas and temperate grasslands lies between the NPP value of tropical forests and deserts. Savannas experience slightly warmer temperatures on average, thus their NPP values would be slightly higher than that of temperate grasslands. Remember that despite their early successional stage, grasslands are resilient as they bounce back from disturbance. This provides a certain stability, but they are easily disturbed by fire and people. Grasslands have been an easy system for exploitation by people. Grasslands provide a natural landscape in which people can farm, and so they have. Industrial agriculture maintains the farm in an early stage of succession purposefully to grow R-selected species such as wheat, rice, corn, and more. Regular plowing, regular disturbance imposes the early successional stage. So let's move to the temperate deciduous forest. Temperate deciduous forest is located at temperate latitudes, 40 to 60 degrees north or south of the equator. Deciduous refers to trees that drop their leaves in the autumn. Temperate forests are located 40 to 60 degrees north or south of the equator, approximately here, here, and here. The vegetation structure of the temperate forest involves tall trees, canopy, substory, and floor species in the summer. Net primary productivity is medium-high. Temperate forests experience wet, warm summers and cold winters. Temperate forests have an intermediate level of productivity, around 1,200 to 1,400 grams per meter square per year. They experience 100 to 150 centimeters of rain per year. Temperate forests have rich soils, a strong decomposer community, moisture, and leaf drop. As well, temperate forests are diverse due to the nature of the tall trees that provide numerous niches. Temperate forests have traditionally been exploited by people for lumber. The forest is natural capital from which people extract natural income in the form of lumber. The taiga biome is also known as the coniferous forest biome. The taiga biome is located 60 to 70 degrees north of the equator, just south of the polar, north polar tundra. The taiga biome is found here, 60 to 70 degrees north of the equator. Due to the relatively small amount of land mass at this latitude south, we tend not to speak of the taiga south of the equator. The taiga biome experiences long, cold winters and short, warm summers. High precipitation, 100 to 150 centimeters per year. Precipitation is high because at this latitude, air is rising as a part of the second cell in the tricellular model of atmospheric circulation. The taiga biome has a medium level of net primary productivity, 800 to 1,000 grams per meter square per year. The vegetation structure involves tall, coniferous trees, evergreen trees, trees with needles. Taiga biomes have poor soils due to the needles. The needles of the coniferous trees cause the soil to be acidic, and the taiga biome is not as diverse as temperate or tropical forests. Taiga productivity, NPP, is an intermediate value. The NPP of taiga is lower than temperate forests because the taiga biome exists in regions that are, on average, colder than regions supporting temperate forests. Taiga NPP is higher than grasslands because the taiga receives more precipitation than grasslands on average. As a result of the coniferous tree growth and the high rainfall, people exploit the taiga for lumber and hydropower. Water is an abundant natural resource in the taiga biome. The tundra is a biome in the polar latitudes. Characteristics of the tundra are no trees, a mat-like growth, wet on the surface, a net primary productivity of 200 grams per meter square per year. The tundra receives very little rainfall. There are long, dark, cold winters and short summers. As well, the tundra has permafrost, which is soil permanently frozen about 1 meter down. And lastly, the tundra experiences high winds. Tundra is located here, dark blue, polar regions in the northern hemisphere. The matted growth of the tundra can be seen in this photo that I took in Svalbard, Norway, about 78 degrees north latitude. Notice, not a tree in sight, and we're wearing heavy jackets in July. The tundra is a very fragile ecosystem. It is easily disturbed, and it does not bounce back quickly. The tundra has low stability. Due to the low rates of growth, the long dark winters, if the tundra is disturbed, the scar of disturbance remains long after. Remember that due to the northern hemisphere's tilt toward the sun in May, June, and July, polar regions experience days when the sun shines for nearly 24 hours. This is a photograph I took in Svalbard at midnight. The tundra is a fragile, easily disturbed ecosystem. Once disturbed, as you can see by these ruts of old roads, it does not bounce back. It has low resilience. Oil reserves found in tundra regions threatens the ecosystem. This is a pipeline carrying oil across Alaskan tundra. And now we move to aquatic ecosystems, which includes the open ocean, estuaries, upwelling areas, coral reefs, and rivers and lakes. Keep in mind that the open ocean, seen here, has very low productivity on a per meter square basis. This is a photograph of the open ocean, which has low productivity on a per meter square basis due to the low density of producers and due to deep locations which receive no light and have very low temperatures. An estuary is where a river meets the ocean and is tidal. Productivity is quite high because the river carries nutrients from the land, and those nutrients stimulate photosynthesis. Estuaries are quite diverse because of the numerous ecosystems, a combination of fresh water, salt water, shallow water, and deep water, and the irregularity of the land as the river meets the ocean. Here's another image of an estuary, a photograph taken from satellite. Notice the plume of nutrients released by the river into the ocean. High levels of nutrients stimulate productivity in an estuary ecosystem. Coral reefs. Coral reefs also have high productivity because they are found in warm waters at shallow depth. Primary productivity is stimulated by warm temperatures and high light. The producers in the coral system are algae that live mutualistically with the coral. The shallow depth of corals allows light to penetrate, stimulating photosynthesis in the warm tropical waters. Here is a photograph of the Great Barrier Reef of Australia taken from space. Upwelling areas of the ocean are regions where water from depth is transferred toward the surface, bringing nutrients from the bottom sediments to the surface. The flow of nutrients toward the surface, where there is light, stimulates photosynthesis. The productivity of upwelling areas is high because of the flow of nutrients from depth toward the surface where light is available. Producers, phytoplankton bloom here, as does the entire food web, and people exploit upwelling regions for fish. This is a satellite image of the Namibian coastline, and you can see the green of algal blooms just off the coast, a sign of an upwelling area where nutrient-rich water is moved from depth toward the surface, where in combination with light, algae bloom. Kelp beds or algal beds have very large ocean producers, but the conditions need to be right: cold water, shallow depths, and protection from destructive waves. You might remember that otters are a keystone species in kelp beds as they eat urchins, ensuring that urchins do not overgraze on the kelp. If otters are removed from the ecosystem, the kelp disappears and the system is threatened with collapse. River or lake ecosystems are freshwater aquatic systems. Like marine systems, the freshwater system is supported by aquatic producers that support a web of consumers. In lake or river ecosystems, the water is shallow, providing light for producers. Nutrients from the land easily transfer into the aquatic system. Productivity can be high, as you can see in this image. Deep ocean vents are a poorly understood ecosystem. The producers are not photosynthetic. There is no light. Instead, the producers are chemosynthetic. The producers build organic molecules using the energy in molecules available from the vent. Be aware that there are ecosystems supported by producers that do not use light as their initial energy source. And that brings us to the end of Ecosystems and Ecology 2, Part 7,